Hello there all my lovely jewelry makers, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and in today's video we're going to be playing around with a bit of resin. So more specifically it's going to be coloured UV resin that Let's Resin was kind enough to send to me. So if you watched my previous resin video, you'll know that I tried out regular UV resin and obviously regular resin as well. But ever since I did that, in my head I was playing around with some ideas with UV resin, but with coloured UV resin. And I was a little bit hesitant about dyeing it myself, as you can with normal resin, because that can affect UV resin not so well in curing it and that. So I discovered that you can actually get coloured UV resin, and then my ideas really started going, because then you wouldn't have to worry about kind of destroying the resin by dyeing it, and also it would just make it a whole lot easier. So specifically the kit that they sent me was this UV resin kit, 12 colours. Let me just open it. Well, you can actually see the colours there, that might be easier. But you get these little bottles inside that is full of coloured resin, so it's already got the colour that you want it to have. So there's 20 grams in each, which they're not very big and it doesn't really seem like a lot, but most of the time you don't really use that much UV resin at a time, I find. And obviously you might use multiples of these together for a project as well, so that means you use less of each. So I do think these will actually go very far. Obviously it all depends how you use them. But they then come with these little caps that you switch out, so you cut that open so you have a hole, and then you can use that to more precisely pour with. And then of course you also get some instructions with it. So that was the kit itself. And then from previously I did already have the UV resin lamp, which is really nice and easy to use. So I'm going to be using both these things in this video here. Now it was really just some ideas I had of playing around with some UV resin and figure out what I could do with it, if my idea would kind of work and you could end up making final pieces that way. And what it was is combining the coloured UV resin with wire. So basically you use your wire and make something first into different shapes, whatever that will be, and then obviously you make sure that whatever you're making has closed shapes in them, and then you can fill those shapes in with the coloured UV resin and therefore adding colour to your wire work. So that was the idea I had in my head. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with it, but I just knew I really wanted to experiment with it and see if it would really work in the first place before obviously moving too much further with any ideas. So first I just came up with a couple of test pieces just to see if it would even work, and I used some different gauges of wire and also different sizes of openings in the shapes that I made, just to kind of see how big you could go and the resin would still work, if it worked at all, of course. Now let's start with this one here. So these are kind of made with different gauges originally. So all the purple ones were made with the smallest gauge, so that I think was a 0.5 mil. So a pretty fine wire. You could obviously also go 0.4 mil. And I made just little loops or circles, you could say, and I just wanted to basically fill them in with purple in this case, because my idea was then just something like this you could make loads of, kind of like I have here, but obviously nicer and neater. And either some where you just did them individually, so one circle there has one length of wire attached to it, or some where you have multiple circles running down one wire, and then kind of twist them and attach them together in different ways and come up with something a bit foliage-like, a bit flower-like. And I also then used, I think it was 0.6 for the pink ones here, so it's a little bit thicker gauge, and I then made the circles a little bit bigger as well, and that still worked pretty easily and pretty well. So I just use a pair of pliers I have where you can make different size loops to then get them consistent as well. And then for this one I just kind of thought, well, let's try and kind of mix them all together and see how it turns out. So first of all, after making the shapes with the wire, I of course filled it in with the UV, and the good thing about the UV resin is using the lamp on it, it cures so quickly and you can keep using it instantly. You don't have to say wait for a day or whether it's 12 hours, 24 hours or whatever. It just basically cures using the lamp really quickly, and then you can just carry it on straight away. So that I really like about UV resin in general. But then I just kind of thought I'll just mix these together, because obviously pink and purple go well together. You can never go wrong with that. And just get a little bit of a feel for something flower foliage like I said. And obviously this isn't super pretty, but the basic principle of it I think is quite neat. You could definitely make something a lot nicer with this, being a bit neater and more precise and planned out maybe of what you were doing, but something that kind of gives you a bit of a flower effect. And I think it'd be really pretty if maybe you make something like a hair piece that will just sit nicely and add a nice touch to your hair. But you've used wire work to make it and then added touches of color with the resin. So that was my idea, and I really wanted to try and see if it would work. And so far I think it did. So I did move on as well, and I wanted to try and make bigger circles. So that's where this came in. I used 0.8 mil for this, and then went up in size again. First of all, in the circles I ended up just making a basic little flower, see how that would look, because then obviously normally you would either leave it like that with the wire, or you would fill it in weaving with wire, but that would still be typically the same color wire. Whereas here with the UV resin, you're adding an actual color, more like flowers are in real life, of course. And then the green ones down here, the leaves, I made even bigger, and then made them a bit of a shape of a leaf, and then filled them with the green. And then this is just what it looks like. Again, just a little test, nothing final, nothing pretty or anything, but the basic principle of it. And I really like that it turned out working well. So actually what I did was, with all of them, I think, at least with the big ones, is first of all, I then put some resin onto like a little application tool like this here, and then the shape that I have, I tended to really work with one shape at a time mostly, and then cure it and then work with it until it was done. What I then did was add the resin, usually from the back I found, otherwise it would tend to drip down. So you basically place the shape into the resin, and then you kind of drag it along, and you make sure you get all the frame of the wire, so the resin kind of gets stuck within the frame. And then I would cure it, and I would, on most of the things I've done, do more than one layer. So that was the first layer, and then after that it would be easier. So I would then just cover one side in resin and add a bit of like a dome effect to it, which would also give it a nicer finish, I think. And then cure that, do the other side and cure that as well, so it's thicker and get a bit of a dome effect, stronger of course, but also it intensifies the color more, because the thinner the layer, obviously the kind of clearer you're going to get the color to be, whereas if you add layers, that's going to help intensify the color. So I did that on pretty much all of them. So that was another thing I found out, kind of I prefer to add more layers. So these are the test pieces. Now what I ended up thinking I wanted to do to try and make some kind of more final pieces was, I got the idea while I was making those test pieces to basically incorporate the colored UV resin into wire writing, because I thought, hang on, wire writing, obviously depending on the letters, tend to have a lot of closed shapes in them, because the letters do naturally. So I thought, I'm gonna make up some words with wire first, and then afterwards go in, and wherever there's a closed shape, I'll add colored resin to it. And you can add different colors, and then obviously completely personalize it depending on personal preference. You could just do the same color or add different colors along. This one I mixed blue and green, and it ended up looking like this. Of course it says hope, just a kind of positive word, and turned it into a necklace. So added a loop on either side there and put a chain on it. So you have a cute little necklace, and it's wire writing, but instead of just wire writing, it has some color to it and something a little bit different. So it adds a pop, I think. And also the UV resin also actually helps the piece be more strong overall, because if you just have the wire, of course you can make it a little stronger and stuff by hammering it gently, or just shaping it also adds strength to it, but even so you can still pull it apart. But if you're adding UV resin in certain places here, that's going to really help make it stronger, so you can less likely be able to pull it apart, because that UV resin acts kind of like a glue, to be honest, and just helps hold it together and make it more strong and durable as well. So I thought that was another bonus. So that one I did first, and then after that I thought I need to make a name to make it a little bit more personal. Technically hope is actually a name as well, I didn't think of that, but I just thought of hope as the word. But I kind of thought I need to try and think of a name that has quite a few closed shapes in them. So I kind of came up with Olivia, which is a really cute name. Who doesn't like Olivia? And then because obviously it's a female name, I thought, why not just stick with kind of typically feminine colors, pink, purple, and they usually go really well together. And then at the end, this I kind of just ended up doing, because how it ended with the A was obviously it's a lowercase a, whereas the loop up here, I thought instead of just bringing the wire up and making the loop where I need to connect the chain to, and just kind of have that hanging on its own, it would look a little bit strange. Thought, hang on, let's add a little hat and then fill that with red, because I did think it would be cute to make like a heart shape. So I added that into the name here and then added the loop afterwards. So technically the hat is red, but obviously red, when it's a lighter version, is really pink. So it kind of turns a bit more pink, but that's because you obviously have the clarity to it. But it is more red than the other pink here. So obviously the O, the two I's and the A are filled in, and then that hat right at the end. So I actually think this turned out really cute. And I think these make really cute necklaces. Instead of just making a name or word or whatever with wire writing, adding that colored resin, I think it's just so cute. Adds a nice touch of color, of course. It could be more personality to it, because maybe you could use whoever's name you're doing's favorite color or colors. And then again, it adds more strength to the piece because the resin kind of acts as that glue as well. So I actually am really pleased with how these two turned out. And I think there's definitely something there to keep working with. Now I did also think, while I was making these, I thought, well, hang on, why not try and basically use them to make our own head pins? So I have several tutorials in the past where I make my own head pins and show a few different designs. With wire, of course, because you can easily do that. And instead of it always having to just be like a loop or a ball at the bottom, you can make different designs and shapes. But then I thought usually they are also a closed shape. So why not make some of them and fill them in with resin? Again, adding some color and also adding that extra strength to them, which will only add extra strength to your final pieces. And this is what I then just quickly came up with. I thought just make a couple of different shapes. I have a star, a moon, and then just a circle. That was actually originally a test piece I did, just one of the larger circles there. And I actually think that also turned out really cute. So that is definitely also, I think, an idea to keep working with. These could obviously be cute little earrings or charms or something just by themselves if you finish them off with a wrapped loop at the top. Or they could be a cute addition to other designs. Instead of just having, like I said, a bit of a boring or typical head pin, you can add to your design by making shapes and filling them in with resin and different colors. So again, I'm really pleased with that idea and think that is definitely something to keep working on as well, to be able to add into designs, like I said. And then I just added some beads to show how that could look. So overall, the original idea I had did work out. I did kind of think it would work. It was just a question of how well, and obviously if I would like it and if it's something that you could use for final pieces, but also kind of practically what you could do with it, as in how big could you go. I will say the bigger shapes were definitely harder to fill in than the smaller ones, because it was a little bit harder to get the resin to grip the whole shape and kind of create that film it does to fill it in. But just trying to kind of do it a few times. Gently with the application tool, it did end up working out. And then I said, just get that first layer down and you can always build it with more layers. But I do think there is a limit to kind of how big you can go. So like I said, this size here, it was a little bit difficult. So much bigger than that, it probably won't really work. But I'm also not really sure how big you want to go for jewelry in general anyway. But this is the little result of my playing around with the colored UV resin for the original little test pieces there that were just playing around and see if it would even work, to the more final pieces that I think could actually work and turn into something really cute. So that was just a video of me playing around with the colored UV resin that Let's Resin kindly sent to me. So thank you very much to them for doing that. And I'm absolutely enjoying using resin in general, so you'll definitely see more of that. Otherwise, I really hope you enjoyed this one. Of course, you'll find links in the description box down below. And if you're at all interested in UV resin, I would highly recommend checking out colored UV resin, because instead of worrying about having to color it yourself and maybe messing up the resin, because you can apparently quite easily do that, just having it already colored is a lot easier and you don't have to worry. So, like I said, check out the description box below the video. And personally, so far, everything I've tried from Let's Resin, I really highly recommend them. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching this one. If you play around with some of these same things, I would love to see it. So you can always tag me on social media. All mine will be in the description box down below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next one.